episode of Shovik's Sports Shit. I am Corey,
And I am Austin.
and we have our first live episode tonight. So we're actually really excited about this. We're hoping it's an easy way to engage with people. It's kind of our first run at doing a live show. Um, so with that, sit back. Nothing different. It's going to be another hour, just us talking sports, kind of doing our thing. So we hope you guys have as much fun as we do. There was a lot to talk about, and then really just from today alone. So I want to start with Saquon Barkley first. That was yesterday. Giants reward, or the Eagles reward him. Deserving. He kind of was the catalyst of that team. That's not their defensive line, right? It's like the offense kind of set the tone for what they were doing on offensive side of football. You know, I think we talked during the postseason about kind of his, kind of his confidence that he brought to that offense. That, you know, if Jalen Hurts is struggling, you can always turn and hand it over to Saquon and kind of do your thing with that. So they reward him by giving him a 2-year, $41.2 million deal. Again, it's the deal makes Barkley the NFL's first $20 million per year running back, and additional $15 million in incentives. The deal includes $36 million fully guaranteed at signing. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, couldn't have signed long term with a worse franchise, but we haven't moved on. No, it's not bad, right? I mean, Saquon Barkley is either the best running back or second best running back in football. Um, I mean, you can still look at Derrick Henry, who had 80 less rushing yards on 20 less carries and was per touch more efficient. So, I mean, 1A, 1B, either way, very deserving. I do think he was the main kind of factor in them. They didn't just win the Super. I mean, they just dominated the playoffs. Honestly, once it started, so um, it's nice to see a franchise just reward their players, right? Um, they also signed Zach Bond, 3 years, 51 mil, I think is what I saw. They're just rewarding their guys, right? And when you're on a Super Bowl winning team, you've been good for a few years, you're going to have to make those decisions. You know, you've already seen them lose some other veterans, Darius Slay and whatnot. It's just part of being that good. But as far as Barkley goes, I mean, no one's going to hate the contract for him. So I think even those who hate Philly still respect Saquon a little bit. So good for him.
Yeah, and so let's stay in that division. A few days ago, and now you had Washington trading for Debo. We kind of asked the question on Instagram about grade the trade. And our friends from Ohio Sports Talk, they kind of chimed in and said it's an A+ or an A move for Washington because what you're giving up and what you're getting for it to basically pair up with, you know, a rookie quarterback who's on the rookie deal. So thanks to those guys for chiming in and giving their grade on it. What do you grade the Debo trade for Washington?
Yeah, I think you pointed it out, or I guess our friends from Ohio Sports pointed it out. When you have a quarterback on the rookie contract, uh, it makes taking on larger contracts like Debo's a little easier. Uh, I don't like the move for the simple fact that Debo, I don't think he's worth his contract. But when you throw in the fact that it's paired with the rookie quarterback contract, I think it's an easier pill to swallow. So if you just eliminate that, I think it's a good trade for Washington, right? I mean, nice little gadget guy. I think he turns into a nice little red zone option. Um, he's not going to be a 80, 90, 100 catch guy for a lot of yards, but he's going to add just one extra dimension for them. So uh, you're never upset to get another playmaker around a young quarterback. So, if this was another team who was a little more strapped against the cap, I'd probably grade it very bad. But since Washington had some room to play with, I think it's a good move for him.
Yeah, and I think for the fact that they're also looking at moving some defensive players, right? They're trying to do something. I don't know if they're looking to spend more, right? or what they're trying to do. I love this move. I think it does open up the offense a little bit. I think we always talked about Daniels paired with Cliff Kingsbury, right, and how that offense can work. I don't know if they're going to use him as the same gadget guy as what San Francisco did. Either way you look at it, the way that Scary Terry, right, Noah Brown, some of those guys, I think that in its own helps open it up. Now Eckler come back. What's Robinson look like? What are they able to kind of mold that offense into looking like?
And just from like a player type standpoint, when you think about the Redskins, the Commanders, you kind of think of the flash of Jaden Daniels and the speed of Terry McLaurin. Well, now you add a little bit of kind of a power player, right, with Debo, Robinson. So now you kind of just you have your choice of what you need to do, right? Can we out physical somebody? Can we just run by you? Well, now they can really do both. So I mean, really from a player type, I don't know. It's a good fit. Cliff Kingsbury, he's smart. He's gonna know how to use them. They may not run him into the ground like San Fran did, so that'll help the durability issues a little bit. Um, only time will tell how well of a move this is, but on paper, uh, it's obviously a win.
Yeah, and again, I think with where that division is in general, the Redskins, the Commanders can still be aggressive. The Eagles are obviously going to do theirs. I mean, they've started, right, but they've also released Darius Slay. They're looking at moving on from other players, but I think that's a lot to do with the young corners, the young secondary that they were able to draft, and how well they've done. Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb restructured his deal, so what are they going to do? So again, and then the Giants are the Giants. I don't know if the Giants technically or really know what they're going to do, but one thing's for sure: Redskins/Commanders aren't going to sit and wait around on their division. They know the Eagles are obviously favorites of their division. So, this move, it's low risk, high reward type, because again, rookie quarterback on a rookie deal, you're not really cash strapped. And if you can move on from Allen, that opens up, I believe I saw 17 mil. So again, could help, you just never know. Anything else on the Debo deal before we move on to the next one?
No, I think just the surprising part, just to touch on the Niners' point of view. I know you mentioned it to me right after the Debo trade, where the Niners were looking to trade Ayuk, and I'm just curious to see where the Niners are heading. Right, like you need to pay Brock Purdy, but you have to get rid of everyone around him, type deal. So, yeah, I think from a Niners, I mean, just 2 years ago they were in a Super Bowl, and now you don't really know what direction they're heading. So, I think it's a win from the Niners standpoint, just for the Debo trade, just to get that number off their books, right? Or some of the money off their books. They had I don't know what it is, but the Niners always seem to have everyone get hurt. So being able to offload a big contract with one of those players who always seems to be hurt, I mean, you don't want to say a team gets better when they get rid of a player like Debo, but it gets them in a better situation. So, um, kind of bookmark off of that, and I'm just excited to see where the Niners go. Right, John Lynch, Shanahan, they always do some crazy shit, pull off moves that we don't see coming or really expect. So, um, yeah, I'm excited to see where they end up.
Yeah, so let's move on. Again, some other news that happened is obviously Davante Adams got a release. He's free to do what he wants. They were looking at trading, realizing no one was going to trade for him. So him and Aaron Rodgers will probably end up together somewhere. Pittsburgh, Green Bay, who knows? I don't know necessarily if Davante Adams should kind of latch himself back onto Aaron Rodgers. I think he should go do his own thing, because I think he still has a lot left in the tank. And that's not to say Rodgers doesn't, but at the end of the day, I did hear that there could be a reunion in Green Bay, and I think Jordan Love would love that. I think that would be huge and a big help. Again, just because if I think Aaron Rodgers ends up in Las Vegas, Vontae's not going to go back to Vegas. I mean, I guess he could, but I just don't think that's feasible, essentially. So basically, we're going to see, what do you think his market may be? I saw today, and again, it pisses me off because it seems like every receiver that's been released has been favored to go to Denver. And it's like the Bronco fans freak out over it. And it's like Davante Adams, 5-1 odds going to Denver. And I'm like, fuck, just not every person released is going to go to Denver. Like, yes, cool, awesome. People want to come play in Denver. That doesn't mean literally everybody's going to come play in Denver. What do you think the market value, or not value, but what do you think the market will look like for Davante Adams?
Yeah, welcome. I mean, that's how it was the last few years for the Chiefs. Is like there was even one slight sniffle of a decent receiver hitting the market, and it was like, oh, he's guaranteed a Chief. They need him. He'll be cheap. Blah blah blah. That's just how it goes. But I think Davante has a lot more left in the tank than Rodgers. It's not to say that Rodgers played bad by any means, especially on the Jets, but I think different teams are gonna. I don't think there's many teams that will work out for the both of them. Uh, I actually see Davante going to San Fran. Um, I think that was kind of 1B the reason Niners wanted to move on from Debo. Um, Niners just want someone reliable, right? I mean, after Ayuk and Jawan Jennings, neither one of those are probably a true number one receiver, but Adams is. He's usually pretty durable, obviously great hands, and would be a wonderful weapon for Shanahan. So I think he does go back, to the West Coast. I don't. You're right. I don't think it's Vegas. That didn't end pretty, no matter what. Um, but I think there's going to be a lot of teams who want him, right? I don't think anyone who's watched him play is like, oh, he's not still a good receiver. Maybe not what he was 5 years ago, but still, I mean, he'd probably be a number two receiver on our teams. So, I think it'll be good. He'll have his choice of where he wants to go. Unlike Rodgers, I think Rodgers is going to have like 1 to 3 maybe places to go. But I expect Adams to get a pretty healthy payday, kind of wherever he wants.
Yeah, no, and I think West Coast would be fine for him. Obviously, from went to Fresno State, did his thing out there. I don't know. I don't think any of the other NFC West teams would be in play. Maybe I don't think so. I don't know if he'd want to go to any of the other NFC West teams to begin with. So again, be interesting to see. Again, so Tyler Lockett released, Christian Kirk released, DK Metcalf requests a trade. So the receiver market's obviously going to be there. You're not going to have, Cooper Kupp still possibly available. T. Higgins, I know he's franchise tag, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they maybe not move on from him still. So again, a lot of receivers, and I don't think the receiver class in the draft's not going to be as deep as it has been. There's still some good ones, but not veteran players like you're seeing now. Tyler Lockett would be a solid pickup. Yeah, I know the numbers declined, but it also Geno Smith. So, and it's not saying Geno Smith's a terrible quarterback. It's just the way Tyler Lockett plays doesn't fit what Geno's trying to do, right? So now you have DK who wants to move on. Could be trouble in Seattle unless they're able to magically do something. Do any of those names, do any of those maybe catch your attention, or maybe someone that you may say, yeah, the Chiefs definitely should do this?
Yeah, I mean, I think all three of the ones you mentioned between Kirk, Lockett, and Metcalf would be wonderful in Kansas City. Um, then you start to think of compensation or paydays and stuff, and I think from a Chiefs standpoint, I think that rules DK out. I'm not a fan of giving up that kind of draft. We're going in with Worthy and Rice. I think we're okay enough at receiver to not need to just overpay or overdo it for a guy like DK. Christian Kirk and Lockett, I would prefer both of those just because you can just go sign them. My preference would be Lockett. I Dude can catch. He can come in and be like our new Justin Watson, but better. Uh, nothing against Watson, but
Yeah.
still Tyler Lockett, right? So he's just more reliable. He has hands. He can operate the middle of the field and the sticks a little, take a little pressure off Kels, who's coming back. But I think any receiver, honestly, just go for a nice depth. You don't have to make a splashy move at the receiving core for the Chiefs. So my preference would be Lockett. I hope he wants to come back towards the Midwest and just hang out and play with Patrick and Andy for a bit. But uh, yeah, I don't see the Chiefs making money moves at receivers. Kind of not really a priority.
No, and I still think Lockett could end up back in Vegas with Pete, obviously, and depending on who they go with at quarterback, you could see possibly a Russell Pete and Tyler Lockett kind of reunion. I don't know.
The Raiders just
Obviously,
turning into the 2012 Seahawks.
well, yeah, and you think about it, they struck out. They thought they were going to get Ben Johnson. They, right, pipe dream. Then you hear, hey, Matt Stafford. Hey, Matt Stafford wants to come to Vegas. No, Matt Stafford didn't want to come to Vegas. And I mean, and we told you guys last week on the episode that it's not a bad thing to end up with Pete Carroll. It's not a bad thing to end up with that coach, just for the simple fact that he knows how to build a culture. He's going to change the culture. He knows what he's doing. Now you just got to see what he brings in. Do I think
Yeah,
Russ and Tyler could be a good fit there?
yeah, and some of I mean, the one thing all those players and coaches who turned the Vegas Raiders away had in common is, I guarantee they all just said "fuck the Raiders," because why wouldn't they? Uh, but even with a coach like Pete, it's still not going to be like a destination place for people to come play, right? Like, cool coach, he's going to get the most out of whoever's in that locker room, but it's still going to take a little bit for that to be a place where people truly want to go. But I think it makes sense for like the Locketts and Russells of the world because it's going to kind of be their last gasp, right? Like, they don't have a lot left. Might be the last chance they can go somewhere and still kind of be that person for a team. Uh, and maybe that's how they can kind of start the rebuild. But yeah, it's still not a destination place. It's the right coaching hire because he'll maximize whatever he's given. Um, but I still don't think a lot of people are going to be lining up um, to go there unless you overpay for it. So um, doesn't hurt my feelings at all. I hope they keep striking out. Uh, yeah, that's all. I mean, we know how I feel about the Raiders, so I don't have to elaborate too much.
Well,
But
one move that they didn't strike out on is a 3-year, 106.5 million, 91.5 guaranteed for Max Crosby. Might as well keep him, do right by him. I think Pete Carroll's going to love having him anchor that defense. So obviously Pete's the defensive guy, right? So Pete's going to get the defense, and no better guy to reward than Max Crosby. If you listen to us throughout the season when we were doing Chiefs Broncos, Chiefs Raiders, Broncos Raiders highlights, we were always talking about don't let Max Crosby beat you. Don't let Max disrupt it, because he was a guy who could, in fact, disrupt a game, and he's one of those guys that can take over a game just based on his quickness, strip sacks. So again, we don't like the Raiders. Not a Raiders fan at all, but this is a well-deserved contract for Max.
see, I'm kind of on the opposite end of this. Not with them. Yeah, obviously we think the world of Max. The dude can get out of our division whenever he wants. Uh, but I actually think it's a bad move for the Raiders for the simple fact that they're so bad and they need so many other quote unquote more important positions. And I mentioned it with Miles Garrett with the Browns. Like, that's an asset you could trade and really stockpile the rebuild for your future. Um, it's never a bad thing to keep a guy like that, but I also think that's a really good piece that they can move to really just jumpstart a rebuild. Um, and I know he's kind of their one superstar, so I can get why you don't. But I think from a team standpoint, like, it would just be smarter to trade someone like that. I mean, because you still need like an entire defense, a quarterback, running back. I mean, they need a roster. Um, so I don't know. Good for Max. Good for the Raiders, right? Keep extending their one guy, but from a business standpoint, I mean, you've obviously known me forever. I've always get rid of them while you can before you lose them for nothing. So Sucks on them have to see him two times a year for the foreseeable future, but I think a smart move would be to trade him.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I don't think so because you're not going to get anything like him in the draft. You might as well just, he's
Yeah,
young
they'll
enough.
never trade him.
He's a
They'll
guy that
never
you're going to
trade him.
build. You're going to have a coach who's going to build a culture there. I think Pete gets some. I think Pete gets a turnaround quicker than some people think.
Mhm.
I do. Pete's a good coach. He's a player's coach. Guys are going to respond to him. Max is kind of your attitude, your dickhead asshole that you don't really like unless he's on your team. I
Yeah,
think
but
he's going to.
this
He
isn't the NFC South that he's rebuilding in.
Well, no, but you still have to be competitive in the AFC West, and I think you still have to keep a guy like this on your roster. Yeah, I get it. They had enough. They have money. They have cap. They'll still be able to go make moves. They're still going to have people that they can pick up in the draft. So again, I smart move
Yeah,
on.
you're never gonna trade him for sure. Like, I'm not saying that like it's rumored or there's potential. I just think when you're such a bad team and you get something like that, it could really help you get better sooner, type deal. Max is going to be a Raider for life. Let's be honest. It is a perfect marriage from player to team. Um, but I kind of said it with the Miles Garrett and the Browns. Like I would trade him if it led me to a franchise quarterback, I will give up a pass rusher,
Right.
type deal. So kind of just sticking with that theme with the Raiders and Max Crosby.
Yeah, let's move into some more AFC West news to kind of wrap up our kind of discussion on the free agency moves, I guess, or cuts, trades. Chiefs trade all pro guard Joe Tooney to the Chicago Bears. Um, I know I saw a bunch of people on Twitter or X today, Chiefs fans who were kind of questioning this move. Um, Frees up money. You're saving what, 18 or 16 mil. So again, this is a smart move for the Bears. You got to protect Caleb Williams. We talked about it all season basically the whole season when we were doing our like rookie kind of reviews throughout the season between Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, and those guys. Caleb Williams was just absolutely battered by his offensive line. There was nothing protecting him, essentially, right? So this is a good step in the right direction. A good veteran player who can play inside, he can play outside if needed. I'm sure their preference would be inside, and then they kind of go from there. So again, Chiefs trade Joe Tooney, Chicago Bears. Your initial thoughts?
I mean, you never love to trade an All Pro like that, but I mean, I actually thoroughly enjoy the trade. Essentially, just to simplify this for Chiefs fans, Chiefs had to choose between Tooney and Trey Smith. They chose the guy who's about 6, 7, 8 years younger. Um, because I'm not going to say his name, but the BYU tackle, I think the plan all along was for him to be a guard. So the Tooney replacement's already there. Whether he succeeds there or not, I don't know. Um, but I love it. It frees up the space to kind of keep the roster together and give you some wiggle room. And then I thoroughly enjoy a fourth round pick. Um, Historically, that's been a really good round for Veach. He's drafted players like Wiley, Hicks, Chamari Connor, Joshua Williams, L'Jarius Sneed. All these dudes were fourth round picks. Um, Again, you never want to trade an all pro, but kind of like I said with Max Crosby, Miles Garrett, like business decisions have to be made. Chiefs kept the younger guy, got a fourth rounder, which isn't bad for a very expensive 32, 33-year-old guard. Plain and simple. You know, when the Chiefs do as well as they have in the draft, there's gonna be cap casualties. They chose the older guy, so I I'm a fan of the move. It saves money, draft capital, all around good. It's obviously a great trade for the Bears. They traded for Tooney. They got Jackson from the Rams in a trade for a sixth round pick. Um,
They're addressing the problem really quickly, rather
yeah,
quickly.
yeah. So I think it's a great trade for the Bears. I'd probably say good trade for the Chiefs. Maybe not great. It's a good trade. Things like that have to happen. When you do as well as you do in the draft, you can't keep everyone. Um, there's you can't have a team like the Dodgers in the NFL. People are going to have to move on. So, um, Tooney, when you think about it, his entire career, he's played 18 to 21 games a season. He's always been championship games and Super Bowls with Brady and then with Patrick. So dude's got a lot of mileage on him. I obviously hope him the best. I hope he has another 3, 4, 5 solid ass years. But I don't hate the move, right? I think after the Super Bowl, I said one thing the Chiefs need to do is get younger and faster. Well, this is a step in the right direction to get a little bit younger at a place you were aging. So I don't hate it.
Yeah, and again, the Chiefs' window is not closing by any means whatsoever, but they do have some decisions, and we talked about those a couple weeks ago about some of the decisions that the Chiefs are going to have to make. Trey Smith's a priority. Nick Bolton may be a priority, but now doing this move gives you the opportunity to keep both of them. Now it gives you a better chance of not letting them go or signing Trey Smith like we think they're going to do, and then maybe start piecing together some of the secondary issues, maybe even, another offensive lineman. You just don't know. But this move, again, I wouldn't say it's the Tyreek Hill move, obviously, because you got way more. But it also shows that the Chiefs, again, they're still not afraid of moving on from people when needed.
Yeah, so just think if the Chiefs extend Trey Smith, that'll open up cap space. If the rumors are true, we have no insider knowledge. Just want to make sure if they do go get Ronnie Stanley for left tackle and then the BYU guy at left guard. So moving on from Tooney and extending Trey Smith will help you keep Bolton, get Ronnie Stanley, and then you can absolutely just focus on a couple positions in the draft, right? You can focus secondary, pass rush, obviously a little offensive line depth, but it puts less pressure on the draft, right? So there's going to be, down the river effects of trading Joe Tooney that we don't see right now, but moves and draft picks and things that they make all because this move was made. So I like it. I think the Zach Bond deal the Eagles did actually makes it a little easier for the Chiefs to keep Nick Bolton because you think he's not going to get more than Zach. I mean, Zach Bond was an All-Pro, so Bolton won't really have much leverage there. So I think they have a real opportunity of keeping their guys and having money to go do what they want a little bit. So I don't know. Off season's a great time. There's a lot of times where you hate a move and then 3 months later you're like, damn, this was awesome. Yeah. And there's times right now where I could be, I'm happy with this move. And then we get to preseason. I'm like, wow, Chiefs fucking made this move and did nothing. Now I don't see the point. So really either way, up front, I like it, but we really have to let it play out to know what Brett Veach is cooking up.
Yeah, it's going to be it's definitely going to be a fun, free agency period. And then, like we said, not too long ago, as we were talking about off season, and getting into the draft, you'll start to see maybe where the teams lean, what they're doing in free agency, right? And that doesn't mean they won't double dip, meaning, yes, they may need this position, so they go get it in free agency. That doesn't necessarily mean they won't do that in the draft either. But you'll start seeing where they're getting the veteran players. It's like Denver, for example. We kind of know where they're leaning or what they need, right? The holes that we talked about. What are they going to address in free agency? Because whatever they're addressing in free agency, that kind of opens up and gives you somewhat of an idea what they're wanting to do in the draft. So if they go out and they get Juwan Johnson, or they go out and they sign Aaron Jones, that doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to be a running back or tight end in the first round, but it gives you an idea maybe where they're leaning and where they want that veteran at more than they would a rookie.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's kind of like an opening day feeling when free agency starts. I think it was last year, and I was sitting here and I kept getting notifications like right away. I'm like, holy shit, this team did this team did that, this team did that. It's kind of like that. I guess not everyone feels the same way about opening day of baseball, but it kind of has that feel where you're just, kind of, I guess maybe Christmas morning feeling, right? Like you get up and just stare at your phone once that deadline or once free agency begins. You're like, what's going to happen? Now the Chiefs have a little money. Denver has a shit ton of money. Maybe not a shit ton, but more than they've had.
More than what they usually do, yes.
So it could be a very active free agency for the squads, but you're starting to see more trades too. I feel like NFL's picking the trades up some. Uh, so it could just be a wild ass off season. I mean, we've already seen 3, 4, 5 trades, and technically things can't even become official yet. So people are wheeling and dealing before it can become official. So uh, get excited because it's going to be wild.
Yeah, and we'll have it all next week on our episode. Now, speaking of wild off seasons, we're going to do something we didn't do last year, but I'm kind of excited that we're doing it this year. It is our own Shovik's Mock Draft 1.0. He's going to do his top 5 and the Chiefs pick at 31. I'm going to do the top 5, and then I'm going to do Denver's pick at 20. And then we'll go a couple weeks, and then we'll kind of come back and revisit it a couple weeks from now, and then kind of see maybe are we having a change of heart or what are we seeing on mock drafts, kind of just eyeing it. We'll start diving into positions and players as we get closer, kind of like what we did last year, position breakdown. We're going to try to find someone other than PFF to use for a grading system because theirs was just
Bad.
theirs wasn't good last year. Unfortunately, because of most of the episodes, we were like, yeah, we don't agree with any of this. So we'll try to, if all else fails, we'll use them, but we'll again just call them out for being terrible. So without further ado, I will open it to you to do your top 5 and the Chiefs, and we'll talk after each pick.
Yeah, so I'm going to stick with what I did previously. Obviously, the first pick is the Titans. I'm sticking with Myles Garrett in the third pick to the Titans for that first pick. So the first pick, I actually have the Browns going. It really depends what quarterback they want. I think right now it's still Cam Ward as kind of the number one quarterback in a tier of his own, I guess. Weak quarterback class, but people will still, if you need it, they'll take their shots, and I think the Browns do with Cam Ward.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, it's not wild, but it is wild just because I still think the Browns stay pat and don't, I don't think they'll move Myles Garrett. The smart move here is to move Myles Garrett.
Yeah, because he's not going to be a Brown forever. He's made that clear.
Very clear. So, kind of what you just said not too long ago about like the Max Crosby thing, right? Move them while you can, get what you can. I think you'd still get a pretty good haul for Myles Garrett. So, but again, I get it. You're not trying to trade your franchise player, but you also haven't done a very good job of building around your franchise player either. So again, we did talk about that last week about, hey, get Myles Garrett, pair him up, do what you can to get Sam Darnold in there. Now you're kind of, anything's, doable now. So that was a bold move on yours. So let's go to number 2. Originally, Browns had the number 2 pick. So
I said third. Yeah, so swap. Obviously, they'd bring more picks, right? Like Titans would also send like next year's first or something. But
yeah.
For this purposes, it was just pick swap Myles Garrett. At 2, I think, because I still think Titans go get a Sam Darnold or a veteran or something to run their offense. So I actually think the Titans will take Abdul Carter at number 2. You've gone from really needing edge rushers to on draft day you get Myles Garrett and Abdul Carter. Pair that with Sweat and Jeffrey Simmons. Like
Titans fans,
right?
Titans
But the thing
fans
is,
are like, bro, fucking speak this shit into existence, bruh.
that's what I'm saying, right? Like obviously, long shots, shit like that doesn't usually happen. But the awesome thing is it's my mock draft, so fuck everyone else. But yeah, I don't think Titans. That coaching staff. I don't think there's a quarterback that they're gonna want to run their offense. So I think no matter what, Titans aren't picking first, but wherever they pick, in this instance, just Abdul Carter, right? Now you have arguably one of the best front fours with Sweat, Simmons, Garrett, and Abdul Carter. So you don't really have to go much farther to see who wins draft night with my mock draft.
Yeah, no kidding. Shit, if that does happen, they're gonna be like, damn. So then that would be, looks like the Giants at number 3. And we talked last week that there are some coaches that aren't going to, they're coaching for their jobs. Like some of these guys could get canned halfway through the season. I don't think Tennessee fires their coach midseason, but obviously 3-14 last year, not really starting the season off hot. Maybe he gets some grace. Cleveland, Stefan, like he's had plenty of chances, I guess, which is shitty because they cash strapped him with obviously the worst contract in the history of football in Deshaun Watson. So again, they got to get these right. No one more than Brian Daboll though. He's got to get this pick right, and if he hinges on a quarterback, he's got to make sure it's the right one.
Yeah, and I think they take Shedeur Sanders. Again, it depends if they're able to get any of the veterans. If they get Rodgers, do they still go like a Shedeur Sanders to let him sit for a year? It's hard to tell, but with where their roster sits right now, there's no way they don't take whatever quarterback they have graded here the highest. So I think Shedeur Sanders makes a little sense there. He's mobile enough to not die behind that offensive line. Giants actually have really good weapons. You've never really been able to see them to their full potential just because they've had like DeVito and Daniel Jones and just random ass people throwing to them. But Neighbors and Robinson, Jalen Hyatt, if they could ever find a way to just make 3 receivers good, they have 3 really good receivers. So yeah, with the Giant, I think it's Shedeur Sanders or a quarterback they have graded, but here it's Sanders.
Yeah, I think they do go quarterback, and I'll kind of give you mine here shortly. But number 4 is the Patriots. Obviously, they have their quarterback. Drake May did just fine last year. New regime, new coach, new attitude. Vrabel is kind of he's a really good coach, obviously, and so they at least they have their franchise quarterback. So where do they go here?
Yeah, I think the Patriots would be stoked to land Travis Hunter here. Um, I He will play both ways, but I think he'll play mostly corner with more like 20 to 30 offensive snaps. Uh, so when you think about that for the Patriots, you're going to have Christian Gonzalez and Travis Hunter at your corner. On paper, your future looks pretty good there. And then you have Travis Hunter playing some offense that gives him that weapon for Drake May. I don't know if it'd be situational, kind of series in, series out. I don't know how teams are going to use them, but even just a few snaps here and there for Drake May, just that explosiveness. He's obviously, I think he's the number 1 rated player in this draft. It's just a little rough when it's a receiver. A lot of times quarterbacks and edge rushers kind of creep up in front, no matter the grades and overall rankings. But Patriots getting Travis Hunter here at 4, I think they would be thrilled.
Yeah, and it gives them a weapon, right? They already have a pretty good defense. Vrabel's going to make the defense better. They have a fuck ton of money, well over $100 million in cap, so they're going to be able to go pick players up. They can go rebuild their offensive line or whichever trenches they want to do, just based on the cap. So they can't go wrong with this pick. Personally, I don't think he's going to make it this far, but again, if he is, I think it's kind of goes back to that draft where Aiden Hutchinson was there for the Lions, and they were like, "Oh shit, is he?" Shit.
Where they got in trouble for making their pick too quick.
Yeah, bro. So I think it's kind of the same thing here. Travis Hunter's still there. I think they absolutely do it. And that rounds out top 5 is the Jacksonville Jaguars, new coach Liam Cohen, Trevor Lawrence, but then they released Christian Kirk. Defense is young. Where are they going?
I think they go Will Johnson. I think we say it every offseason with the Jags. They're really good offensively on paper. Like they still have weapons with Brian Thomas Jr. Dude was a baller. Evan Ingram has kind of been good. Don't really know why they don't succeed much, but they don't. But in a division where you got to play, like the Nico Collins and Michael Pittmans of the world, just kind of having that big alpha dog corner would be too good to pass up. I'm a big Will Johnson guy to begin with. I think for the last 3 years, I was hoping for some reason he would be able to get to the Chiefs. Obviously, not going to happen. Uh, but I think he would be rated the number one corner in this draft if it wasn't for Travis Hunter's primary position, I think, being listed at corner. So uh, I think this is another. There's a couple options they could go. I still Will Johnson. They go his college teammate, Graham or Mason, and whoever they interior D line. But I think in a division that now has Stroud, uh, Colts maybe not figuring it out, but still have big receivers. Will Johnson just makes too much sense.
Yeah, and new offensive-minded coach, right? I mean, obviously they had Dougie P, so we got to see what he's thinking with Trevor Lawrence. I mean, if releasing Christian Kirk today, they say Brian Thomas, but do they pair him another one of these rookies up with him at number 5? I don't know. Maybe the Arizona guy. He might be the one that can go this high, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I mean, is he going to want to build the offense through the draft, or is he going to build the defense? One thing we do know is Jacksonville's always super aggressive in free agency. They have been. They always will be. Do they overspend? Fuck yes, they do. Do they miss on most of them? Absolutely. But again, you'd never know with the new coach. He could maybe make this work. He may not. But what we do know and history shows is they're aggressive in free agency, and I don't see it being any different. Even with new GM, the owner, he's still going to say, hey, go spend it. So it will be very interesting. And again, I think this is a team to watch for in free agency, just for that kind of gives you an idea of where maybe they want to go. Maybe they stack up on certain spots in free agency, and then you're like, okay, well, maybe that means they're going to lean this way for draft capital or draft pick. So yeah, I mean, that they're kind of that team that's kind of like, but again, they're always ultra aggressive and they always spend way too much money in free agency. So we'll see. So that's your top 5. Now let's go to 31. Let's go to the Chiefs. Do they stay? Do the Bills give them theirs? How's this work? What's going to happen?
So it's kind of hard. Top 5 is easy, right? Like people are on the board, it's kind of hard to know what will still be available. Even in mock drafts, you see, some people have people going in the top 15 that other mock drafts are like, well, they're not going till 40. So it's really hard to know really what kind of options the Chiefs will have. For this purpose, for them just picking at 31 and on some mock drafts I've seen, an ideal pick would be James Pierce. I don't know if he's still going to be kind of this far back on boards after the combine. We know some people climb their way up the boards with combines. I think he's one of them. He would just be ideal. He'd be that younger, faster edge guy that I've kind of been talking about. But I do think Chiefs will honestly, I know this isn't narrowing it down. I think they either trade up or trade back. I think if a tackle they feel highly about is still there, flirting around late teens, early 20s, they'll trade up to get him. But I also think if nothing really falls their way, they won't hesitate to trade back a little bit. So, yeah, it really depends how the board shakes out. I don't think, again, with what we've been hearing in the free agency for them, I don't think the draft is going to be focused on the offensive line. I think they're tired of that. It hasn't worked out too well from the tackle standpoint, and that's what they need. So I think they go the veteran route in free agency for tackle, and then focus more on like the defense, edge rushers, corners, whatnot. So really depends how it falls. It wouldn't be surprised me if the Chiefs trade back, get a few more picks, and make their magic on days 2 and 3 like Brett Veach usually does. But for just standing pat, I'd like to see like a James Pierce and Nick Scourton, Scouten, however you say his name, from A&M. Just one of those lengthy, freak athlete defensive ends would be an ideal pick.
Yeah, no, I think Pierce could be one of those, but he could also have helped himself at the combine. He had a really good combine. So did Stewart from A&M as well. Scourton, obviously, big time player at a big time SEC program. So again, those defensive players from the SEC are basically NFL built and ready,
Yeah, look at the
especially.
Eagles.
Yeah, man. I mean, the Georgia guys. So again, Pierce, SEC defensive player, Scorton, Stewart, all those guys, SEC defensive players. So um, I do think I think they trade up, but I don't think it's going to be with the Bills. I think the Bills
That's
have.
only one pick this time.
Yeah, I think the Bills may have learned, hopefully, but I do think they may move up because I think they're going to see someone that they really truly want, and I think it's got to be right. Like they're not going to just do it to do it, right? Like last year, I don't think they really needed to trade up for Worthy, but Buffalo kind of fucked it up. So again, I think they're going to find somebody that they really truly like. They may move up because just they like to do that. If it's
Well, and the prime target would be Banks from Texas, right? He's kind of been all over on mock drafts. I do think it'd be someone that the Chiefs are high on, which is why, like, yeah, going out and getting a Ronnie Stanley would be cool. But like, if that Banks guy who's kind of floating around, tackle is something that could fall in the draft enough to where they could trade up. So I think you're absolutely right. Um, but when you're sitting, hell, even Denver at 20, you just don't know how the board's going to fall. You don't really know what's going to be available. Um, but the Chiefs at least have proven that they'll trade up, they'll trade back, uh, whether there's someone they want or don't want. So I think you're spot on with that. They probably have a few people circled where if they have a chance to get up and trade for them, that they absolutely will.
yeah, and again, when you pick the same position basically every single season, you never really know. There could be times where they're like, we'll trade out, right? Or they're like, hey, we'll go up and get somebody. But again, they're in that position where you just don't know. You don't know at all. Basically, from 28 up, most of those teams have what they need, right? Like the Lions pick 28. They just had a fuck ton of injuries. Yes, they could use some depth, obviously, but most of these teams, I mean, you can trade up at any of these teams. And
It's
then
something to take into consideration, right? Like, this draft is deep as hell. There is so much talent in this draft that it
yeah,
wouldn't
you're going to
surprise
double
me.
dip at some positions.
Well, yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me if teams like 24, 25 to 32, if they don't trade back to stockpile pick. That's just what good teams do, right? They understand how deep the draft is. They stockpile the picks and just complete their roster that much more. We'll touch base on that when we do positional rankings of just how deep this draft is, but that's another thing to take into consideration, right? Like this draft is deep. It's very talented. You're
And
going
it's
to get quality players in the fifth, sixth round.
Yeah, and obviously quarterback's not one of them.
No,
Quarterback's not deep at all. So I'm going to start with mine with the Titans. I'm going to go on record now to say Travis Hunter is the best player in the draft. He should be number one. The Titans I don't think are in a position to take him number one overall. It would be cool because I think either way he's still a generational type player where it could still help you out either way. Do you end up getting a Sam Darnold? Does that then maybe say, hey, we could get a Travis Hunter type player to help us in certain positions? But I think they do. I think they do go Abdul Carter here. Again, I still think they're going to target quarterback in free agency. I still think, if all else fails, they give Will Levis one more chance, right? Maybe they try to spend some money to get some pieces around him. I don't think they should, but again, if it starts going back and forth between Will Levis and Mason Rudolph, you got a fucking problem.
yeah.
But in the end, Abdul Carter could go number one, and I think it would be a good fit. It at least gives them someone on defense to go with the sweats, with those guys, and their defense is really good, right? Their defense is loaded. They have some question marks and some holes still, but again, they're a 3-14 team. I don't think they're going to flip it and go, 12-5, 13-4 right away. They have needs, and I think Abdul Carter helps with that need, and then they can kind of go from there. This is where the tricky part goes because we talked last week about the Browns maybe being in the market for Kirk Cousins, right? Familiarity, do they go with Kirk? He knows the offense. He's a veteran. What are they going to do, right? If they were to pick up Kirk Cousins, maybe they do go Travis Hunter here. I'm actually going to go with Cam Ward at number 2 to the Browns. again, you're kind of in that. It sucks that you need a quarterback in this year's draft. It truly does. But Cleveland's desperate. They need to make a move. They're in cap strap because of Deshaun Watson. Myles Garrett obviously wants out. They're going to have a lot of other issues to worry about. But I think you bring in Cam Ward, you have Jerry Jeudy, you have Njoku. You got to kind of get some of the other pieces kind of figured out that part. So I think Cam Ward, obviously, I think his arm talent's better. I think, Shedeur has the ability to move just based on his time in Colorado, right? He knows the offensive line in front of him is not the greatest. So, but again, I think Cam Ward is better off in that offense. You can't get any worse than what you've had, right? So again, I like Cam Ward at number 2. Number 3. So here's what I'm going to talk about over the next few weeks. I kind of like Jackson Dart to kind of start creeping in to this top 5 area. Giants could be a team to watch for. Now, it's mock draft 1.0, everyone. So I'm going to go with Shedeur Sanders here just because they need a quarterback. Dayball's that guy who's, again, who are you going to put your job on the line for this guy? No, but you kind of have to do something. I would also look at Travis Hunter here too. If he doesn't go, or he will, obviously he's still here, but I would still look at Travis Hunter potentially here too. I still think there's a couple quarterbacks out there that they may be like, we might be able to grab this guy. So again, if they don't go quarterback, maybe Travis Hunter. But for this purpose, we're going to go Shedeur Sanders at number 3 to the Giants. Number 4, Patriots. Travis Hunter, he's there, so you got to take him. I think that they're going to be able, and I think they may even put him in special teams with some of the stuff just because, how dynamic he is. We had a chance, obviously. He played KU. KU won this game, but Travis Hunter did a hell of a job against KU. Again, my opinion, the dude's the best player in the draft. He should be number 1 overall pick, but I think the Patriots would be a good spot for him. I think he would learn from Vrabel. And again, not very many coaches that I respect as much as I do Mike Vrabel. I think he gets the best out of his guys, and he's going to coach them up correctly, right? Vrabel's a great player in his own rights. You get a talent like this, he's going to do right by Travis and kind of go what he's supposed to do. And then with the Jaguars, I do have them going Arizona's receiver here, McMillan. I think the Christian Kirk release, you can't just rely on Brian Thomas. You're going to have to get other weapons. I saw today that Evan Ingram could be a cap casualty. So if that's the case, he's still going to need some targets and some weapons. So right now, I would lean towards McMillan from Arizona to be the 5th overall pick from the Jaguars. I'll look more into maybe what they're doing as far as like who they're cutting, who they're releasing. Brian Thomas is a good receiver, but at the same time, you got to have someone else there that's going to open it up for him. And obviously, you got to help Trevor Lawrence out because you paid him a shit ton of money. So you got to help him. You got to figure it out. So let's go to number 20, Denver's pick. I've been seeing too many different things. I'm not on the first-round running back bandwagon. So if Genty's there, I hope he's not. I truly hope Ashton Genty's taken somewhere that's not to Denver. I've seen so many other ones. I've seen Colston Loveland to Denver. I don't like that. So again, it's mock draft 1.0. So for right now, give me Luther Burden. I'll take him. Receiver, Mizzou. I think, yes, Cortland Sutton's going into final year of a deal. Yes, maybe you kind of work something out with him. If not, you can kind of plug in Luther Burden right there in the future if needed. History has that Sean Payton's probably more than likely not going to take receiver number 1 or in the first round. But I also don't really like the tight ends outside of Tyler Warren in this one. Just based on what I've been able to see, I would still go Luther Burden here for now. Again, it's March 5th, so things can change. So that's kind of where I'm leaning towards right now.
Yeah, I love Colston Loveland, so I really hope Denver hates him like you do. So I think Luther Burden makes sense. I'm not very high on him. I know anytime I watched him, I wasn't exactly like blown away with what he put on a football field. The dude is dynamic with the ball in his hands. Uh, Problem is I outside of like special gadget plays, I wasn't like blown away with like his route tree, his route running ability. Um, but I think him going to a coach like Sean Payton would fix a lot of that. Uh, I think it'd be a good pick for him.
I,
I
I
think it'd be better than a running back. You're not wrong on that. So
Well, yeah, and I think as we get closer to the draft, I'm going to start looking more defensive side for Denver to take in the first round.
don't
Uh,
you get a lot of that safety
the
rotation?
safety, yeah, I'm going to look deep. Like we obviously, those of you that listened to us for a while, you know we love trenches, so we're going to spend a lot of time on that defensive line because it's deep. It's a deep group. Denver could even take that in the first round and probably still find one in the third round if they need to. Because Zach Allen's going to, and I think Zach Allen's going to end up pricing out of Denver, and that's good for him. He's earned it. He's going into this season basically no guarantees left. I'm not really looking at giving him the 25 mil that they're talking about giving him. So again, and that's not to say that he doesn't get it. He's a good player. He was a huge reason why Denver led the NFL in sacks. He was an all-pro caliber player. But again, I think this draft is just too deep. It's too deep of those positions, and Denver just happens to need safety, D-line, corner. So again, as cool as it would be to draft offense first round, I still think you can get by with finding, the Travion Hendersons or even the Judkins, Devin Neal, some of those other running backs, Jordan James. You can get those guys in the second, third, and fourth round if needed. You don't necessarily have to waste your first round pick on an offensive player, which is what's going to make the next few weeks super fun, right? Just because everyone's mocking Abdul Carter #1 is probably going to end up being that's going to change so many different times, especially like you were talking earlier. It's no guarantee the Titans even pick this, right? They could say, hey, this draft's really just, yes, we need a quarterback, but no, none of these, right? So let's do right. Let's get trade. Let's make the moves, and then we can go from there. And I think that's what's going to make the next few weeks that much more exciting as far as like the moves go. Because who's to say the Browns want to pick at #2, right? Maybe they want to move back, and they're going to have to rely on draft capital for a couple more years. As long as Deshaun Watson's on the books, they're going to have to nail their draft. So again, that's what's going to make the top 5 really, really interesting. But I'm telling you now, I wouldn't be surprised if Jackson Dart does work into the top 5.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, he'd be the first quarterback I would take out of this draft class. I know it's not always, people look at measurables and intent. I mean, that's, Flacco didn't have a great collegiate, career based on his competition, but the dude was a giant with a throwing arm, so he worked his way up there. But it's hard for me to just see what Jackson Dart did against those SEC defenses and think that it can't translate to the NFL. Okay. He's already ran a pro style offense, quick decisions in Lane Kiffin's offense. So he's obviously got the processing and IQ part down. He's not some 6'7" giant, but he can fling a football. He's mobile enough. He's shown he can run an offense, lead an offense. So I don't disagree with you. I think we've said it before where personally, he's my favorite quarterback in this draft.
Yeah, and I know Quinn Ewers kind of helped himself out last week at the Combine too. So we'll see if he may be fringe first rounder just in case. We'll see. Pro days will come up. The Big 12's doing their showcase where they do the Big 12 showcase. So he has a chance to help himself out there. And I'm sure they'll still have their own maybe mini pro day or workouts. Obviously, teams have been setting up their first 30 work meetings, right? So I'm sure teams will get some private workouts with him. So again, yeah, there's names, right? There's names at quarterback in this draft. Are there going to be any of that are going to be franchise quarterbacks? I'm right as of now, March 5th. I'm saying no. let's kind of wait and see what pro days look like, where they're drafted. Systems matter, coaching matters, where they're drafted. So again, who knows? But this is our first live episode. It's been fun, just on YouTube. Next week we're gonna try a couple other. We'll try Instagram Live. We get so many options, so it won't just be YouTube every week. This was just kind of, we didn't even know if we were gonna be able to do it just based on Riverside's hookup. So again, we'll try different ones next week. You can still find the audio on Apple, Spotify, iHeart. Thank you again to the new followers on Instagram. They're still coming in. We're getting closer to 700 followers on Instagram, so that's awesome. So again, make sure you rate, review the show. Again, we're still working on getting schedules lined out with everybody to try to get more guests on here. We're working on a couple other podcasters in the next couple of weeks. One covers the Titans and one covers the Bears. I'm sure he's excited about the move that the Bears were able to make in getting a 4-time Super Bowl champion to kind of anchor down that offensive line. So we'll work on getting him on here in the next couple of weeks as well. So again, thank you all for joining us tonight, and we'll talk to you guys next week. All right, I got to pee, and then I'll be up.
Okay.